First came the earthquake that rattled New Yorkers but did only minimal damage. And now the state is preparing for what appears to be a much bigger challenge, and that is weathering Hurricane Irene. Everyone is trying to stay ahead of this storm, with parts of New York City under a mandatory evacuation order, as we have mentioned, and the president signing an emergency declaration at Governor Cuomo's request. Both Cuomo and New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg have held multiple press conferences and conference calls to keep New Yorkers up to date on storm preparations. My next guest have been keeping a very close eye on all these developments because they know there could be political fallout when the storm clears. Joining me tonight is Glenn Blaine of the Daily News. Next to him is Rick Carlin from the Albany Times-Union. And of course, we are joined by our own Nick Reisman. Nick, good to see you.
Good to see you. Okay,
we made it back from the fair in one piece. We dodged the rain, so we are all good. And guys, thanks for being here. Glenn, it's great to see you. Rick?
Great to see you.
Okay, the governor clearly is taking this very seriously, cut his vacation short. President Obama cut his vacation short. The problem here, of course, is that if something goes wrong and they didn't need to call an evacuation, they are going to look alarmist in a big way.
But I think that the forecasts are such that it looks like the storm is coming our way.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a practical and a political aspect to this. Practically, he's doing the right thing by getting everything organized ahead of time, getting the response organized 2 days before the storm. You know, most of the work is going to happen after the storm in terms of the cleanup. Yep. Him and Mayor Bloomberg are trying to get people to safety, people who might be in danger. That's the practical side of it. And the political side is that, you know, stay on top of it. Be out there front and center during the emergency. Neither Governor Cuomo, certainly Mayor Bloomberg, do not want a repeat of what happened last Christmas when Bloomberg flew home from Bermuda at the last minute during a big snowstorm. Then he kind of poo-pooed the snowstorm at one point. I think he told people they should go to the theater, or go shopping.
Well, I remember,
and New York City was paralyzed, and he got a lot of flack for that.
You know, for the long delay it took to clean out several neighborhoods in the city.
Not Manhattan, mind you, outer boroughs.
Outer
boroughs.
You know, and these are the things that make or break elected leaders. I mean, we just saw in Japan, the Prime Minister of Japan just resigned, and he caught a lot of heat for the way they handled the earthquake and the tsunami. And in this particular case, I think the forecasts really justify the actions that Bloomberg and Cuomo are taking. The governor said today in one of his conference calls that every forecast model they have seen shows it coming through New York, either Long Island or New York City. So in this case, I think they're very justified in doing what they're doing.
Yeah, and it could be really dangerous if they don't. I mean, in two ways, as you mentioned, politically, and then, of course, the very real and the top priority.
There is danger that people would be in peril if they're not evacuated from the flood-prone areas.
They want to be seen, you know, obviously, that they're on top of things, and also tell people, you know, to be safe and give them advice on what to do, even for their pets, as we saw today. But at the same time, you know, this is, you know, Glenn and Rick, you guys are both right. This is like something that people, even libertarians, say at this point. This is the minimal thing that government needs to be doing. Municipal and state government's basic function is to respond to and prepare for potential disasters.
Well, and
like
some people's ideas. So was it Ron Paul who said, you know, I think we should do zero? We should just go back to the way it was? Was it Ron Paul who said this? Or maybe you have House Majority Leader, I think Dan Cantor said, Dan Cantor, pardon me.
Eric Cantor.
Eric Cantor. I'm confusing my Cantors. Basically, it was like, if in fact we pay for disaster cleanup and aid, we're going to have to take that out of spending somewhere else. I mean, already it's becoming, you know,
well, it's going to be an expensive proposition for a lot of states.
I mean,
and New York is expensive for New York as well.
Oh, yeah,
it could blow a hole in the state budget also, and which will be interesting. That all of a sudden it looked like it's under control now. The next year's budget deficit, they seem to have a handle on it, but after this weekend, who knows?
And that is something. I mean, the state does have that $800 million surplus, and just the Citizens Budget Commission was just saying the other day, don't get too comfortable, and maybe this is.
And that surplus isn't so much of a no. That was a very tenuous surplus. That was due to some of the tax returns came in early this year, and people were saying it's not $800 free cash.
The only thing, though, and we'll leave because we really don't know what Hurricane Irene is going to do, but we'll leave it at this. You're sort of damned if you do and damned if you don't. If you are expected, as you point out, you're expected. This is like minimally what government should do, right? But if you screw it up, You are in some serious
they've
trouble.
learned that, governments, I think, around the country have learned a lot since Hurricane Katrina in 2005. They've realized that they have to be seen as being on top of this stuff. They realize that the logistically insane things of putting people into, say, a football stadium as an evacuation route is probably not the best way to go about doing things. So I think that what you're seeing here with Irene, which is probably the biggest storm to hit the U.S. since Katrina, I think you're seeing really the first post-Katrina response from local governments.
Yeah.
What's going to be interesting, though, is after the storm clears out, then how does the state perform? How does the state apparatus perform? Are they able to get the roads open reasonably quickly? Are they able to get the Long Island Railroad up and running within some set period of time?
Right.
Or who knows what will happen? And
it's always the cleanup that matters, really.
Yeah.
Getting people back in their homes and getting power.
Right. The power is going to be a big one. So obviously we're going to be keeping tabs on all of this stuff for you, and we'll be talking about the storm's tracking, and we'll be talking about it a lot. Let us talk about a guy who was just sort of here and now he's gone, George Pataki. What the heck happened?
Well, he put out some sort of feelers or notice that, maybe he'll run for president. Trial balloon, and the trial balloon.
If you look at it this way, what came out over last
weekend
weekend
is what it did. Yeah.
What came out over last weekend was he was seriously considering a run for president.
Right.
Now all of a sudden last night he's not doing it. So
right.
He said what came out today was that it was family concerns. His two daughters are getting married. His son is running for Congress or thinking of running for Congress. So he's not going to run. But, it's hard to imagine that if he had gotten more of a positive response during the week, maybe his thinking would have been different.
It's also really hard to imagine a positive response for a president or Pataki for president campaign. I mean, you could see that he thought he saw an end there, especially in New Hampshire. But Mitt Romney has been running for president since 2008.
Right.
You've got John Huntsman, who has already kind of filled out the moderate former governor role, and he's not doing too well. Mitt Romney has now fallen into second place. Mitt Romney, another, moderate record-wise Northeastern
Not according
governor.
to Mitt Romney.
Not according to Mitt Romney, but you look at his record, he's a moderate Republican.
Yes, he is.
And you've got some, Tea Party-backed Republican governors like Rick Perry, Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann, who are in this right now, and they seem to be the ones who, for now, really have the wind at their back when it comes to public support.
Were you surprised at all, though? First of all, two things, and I actually was just talking with some of my colleagues in New York City about this. The response from the home state press corps and the people who know a person the best when they run for president is always, this guy's not got a shot, he's kind of a boob,
it was a collective
blah, blah, blah,
sigh.
blah. Right, we were sort of like, Pataki again, whatever. I mean, it would have been nice to have a New York candidate so we could also have something to write about, but that is always the case, that the people who know you best, right? But on the flip side, there was a vitriolic response. He was a laughing stock. I think some reporters called it sad. I mean, it was
which is a term he used to use against his opponents. Well, it's sad that they're attacking me. I think that the fact is he went out on a sour note. He just and that's almost, it seems to happen a lot in New York State. You just get chewed up and spit out, and by the time he had left office, people were just tired of him, and things had taken a turn for the worst under his governorship.
There was
I think
definite Pataki
a lot of patronage. There was real fatigue.
Yeah.
Pataki fatigue in the last 3 or 4 years of his administration.
Yeah.
And I think people also look at what he was mounting his campaign under as like anti-debt, the nation's debt. But if you look at what happened in New York under his stewardship, New York's debt rose substantially.
Spending and
spending rose. He also, if he's
he says that's not his fault.
Right. Well, he's also made a very generous deal with the healthcare workers union in the run-up to his final run for election, which got the healthcare workers big raises. Just a week or two before 1199 endorsed him for re-election.
Yep.
All these things he would have had to answer for if he was running for re-election.
But
running for president, rather.
It does speak to a bigger problem, which is to say that the Republicans just seem to find their field, some segment of the Republican Party seems to find the field really unpalatable, and this belief that Barack Obama could be beaten if only they could find the right person.
Right.
And
they want Chris Christie, they want Paul Ryan.
Because they don't think independents and moderates can actually vote for Michelle Bachmann or Rick Perry.
But, of course, they need that right wing of the party to get nominated.
The person nominated. Sure. Okay, there was actually some news today. I just want to talk about it briefly. The Judicial Compensation Commission came out with a raise, 27% over 3 years. Sounds pretty good to me. The judges are not happy at all. That's interesting. How do you think the legislature is going to accept it? Anyone?
Well, this puts them on par with the federal district judges.
It
from
does?
What I read.
Over 3 years?
Yeah, over 3 years, $174,000, I believe, by 2014. Most people, that looks pretty good. The judges, they don't like it. I think the chief judge came out. Jonathan Littman was not real thrilled.
He was
with it.
disappointed, but he also said he understood it's tough times,
yeah.
and he was happy to be getting at least some increases in their salary. But don't forget, the legislature hasn't seen pay raises in a long time either.
Yeah.
They have a voice in this, and whether or not they go along with raises for the judges without themselves getting raises in these times with these budget deficits.
You can smell a deal, right? You smell a little horse trading there.
And that's
I'm starting to.
That's always been the issue. When judges get a pay raise, the legislature gets a pay raise. It's been, those two things have been tied together, and the last time it happened was in 1999. And the legislature, there's a snowball's chance in hell that the legislature would get a pay raise anytime soon. It's just a politically unviable option right now.
Especially going into an election year.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so it'll be very, very interesting to see what the legislature's response is.
Sure.
And don't forget the governor. I mean,
no, you got to think that the governor. I know what you're going to say. Are you going to talk about? You're going to say
Bob
Megna?
Megna, yeah.
I agree with you. Well, go ahead.
Well, no, Megna testified at the hearing that it was not the time to be giving raises.
Yes, I know, but Bill Thompson is
shape.
very close to Andrew Cuomo, right? Remember, Bill Thompson, who's running for mayor himself in New York City in 2013, stood on the stage and was one of the people who validated and nominated Andrew Cuomo and stood up for him when he had a problem with some segments of the black community for picking Bob Duffy and then having an all-white ticket. I mean, I can't imagine, and we did have him today, we talked to him, I can't imagine he would have done something that Cuomo didn't agree with. I'd be surprised, at any rate. I'd be surprised. But yeah, I agree with you. The legislature's going to be a problem. I just wonder, the judges come off a little bit peevish here. So many people are out of work.
It's a very tough sell. It's a very, very difficult sell when you've got people who are making well in excess of 6 figures saying that they need more money and they need more taxpayer money in order to accomplish it. But at the same time, their argument has been, look, this is a highly specified, highly trained field, and we're losing a lot of good people, a lot of good judges don't want to continue on in this job, even though, some lawyers become judges. It's kind of like an emeritus position for them in a lot of cases. But at the same time, you've got a lot of jurists who are supposedly saying, this is not enough money for me to feed my family or to send my kids to college, et cetera, et cetera.
But also, CSEA took three years of zeros.
Yeah.
PEF is now mulling 3 years of zeros, right?
Have a lot of judges actually stepped down?
Well,
and they have not. According to the Bar Association, they say that they have, but the numbers actually have held pretty steady, I think, over the last couple of years.
It's accelerated. According to a study done by the Office of Court Administration at the request of the New York Times, I believe that's how it went, that the pace has accelerated somewhat, right? Because people are ostensibly because they're upset with their pay.
Or are they just getting older and retiring out of the system?
It depends on who you talk to, right? It depends on who you talk to. Some judges, and they say, I could make $1 million in private practice, I might as well just go and do that. But you don't have the prestige of someone standing up and wearing robes and calling them your honor every time you walk into a room.
But that's the whole thing about going into the public sector. You're not going to be making $1 million, and if you're good enough to be in the public sector, odds are you could probably be making $1 million in the private sector.
Right.
But there's a certain aspect of going into public service where you're not making money.
Let's just talk briefly about that PEF contract. We are expecting to hear word at the end of September. I'm seeing on your blog, Rick, and I've been talking to some members of PEF. They're more organized opposition, it seems like to me, than the CSEA contract. Do you agree with that?
That seems that way to me, too. And I noticed from the blog comments all along there have been more no voters who at least are willing to speak up and voice their opinions on the blogs and in the meetings that they've been having and so forth. It is hard to tell, though, because one wonders are you hearing from a select segment of voters who
the
are
squeaky wheel,
the squeaky wheel. So
you heard a lot of that before the CSEA vote, and it turned out to be 60-40 in favor.
Yeah, that's true. Let's just hypothetically, though, what would it mean if the PEF contract failed?
Probably more layoffs for PEF.
Right.
Yeah.
The governor doesn't lose, right, because he already won with CSEA. So this one is really PEF's to lose. It seems, at any rate.
And put PEF out on an island.
Yeah, and then you have other unions that are now negotiating too.
Right, exactly. You still have, and let's go back to that Howard Glazer memo. that went out, I believe, 2 weeks ago now, where he kind of nudged UUP and another union,
the
prison guards,
the prison guards union and the college professors union, to basically come back to the bargaining table, and he accused them of essentially dragging their feet.
Yeah,
now,
and he said
both
time
unions
is short.
said, especially the correction officers union, said, that's not the case. We're negotiating good faith. They're the ones who are closing the prisons and laying people off anyway.
And by the way, we haven't even started yet, is what they said.
Right.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. I want to thank you guys very much. Glenn, thanks very much for being here. Rick, of course, and Nick, thank you. And stay dry, right? So good luck.